People, you don't think I see you crying in your cars, but I do. Sometimes I can feel it at a red light, someone at my side trying to muddle through. See them wiping their eyes in their rear view, like black hole sun in the sky, why the fuck won't you come when I need you? Well, this moment in time is as close as we'll be and as far as I'll meet you. Two windows in between us, new moon in the house of Venus. One stranger who sees you and reads your features knows that your alibi might be tight, but it's not quite leak-proof. So if you're sitting at the light and you're crying in your car, just know that I see you. And it's a 50-50 that I'm bloodshot, gun-shy, once bitten, twice tried, ribs pried wide to the sky till I'm see-through.
That's you, in case you don't recognize yourself.
You don't think I see you struggling to breathe, but I do. I see you stumble in your everyday grief like I do. I try, but I do. I'm twice bitten too. My mind's split in two. My knuckles bright white from the 10 to the 2. And the song in my head is the theme for a fugue. A state of decay through the filter of corporate news, where they edit the grays and the blues. They whitewash the brown till they drown out the natural hues. And then it's just another fact to refuse, that the corporate ladders for hanging the company noose. Consider it one of your perks, after all it's communal in use. So you can come and hang till your legs go limp and they're shaking you loose. Now you watch 5 co-workers opt for the alternate exit, neatly suspended above where you wolf down your food. And your company gets its incentives embellished by harping on wellness, suggesting you'd best take time for your mental health after your 14 hours are through. Like we gave you a bottle to piss in and fixed up a noose on the crossbeam. Christ, what more can we do? So if you struggle to breathe any moment that you aren't asleep, then remember, most of Americans fear for their savings, fear for their shelter, fear for their babies. You aren't the fringe of exception, but rather a perfect example of capital's rule. And you're far less alone than the ruling class tells you is true. You're far less alone than the ruling class tells you is true. I see you crying in your cars, but I do.
Just an off-the-cuff chat between you and me. Us. We want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
Who are these people?
It's us. We're these people.
I love that intro. I love that intro so much.
I'm here with a different co-host this time, Oz LaFave.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me on.
Friend of the show, DJ Joe Nice. How are you, friend?
What's good? And you hear Nick say this all the time. The United States is the most propagandized country in the world.
We are so fucked, you guys. Again, I'm sorry for being cynical, but seriously, we're fucked. We are fucked. We are well and truly fucking fucked.
Just appreciate all the work that you do and the platforms that you all are providing.
Hey, you. Doing good. How are you guys doing?
And as independent media, we have a responsibility to be, we don't hide our bias, obviously, but we must stay true to the facts.
What's up, Pam?
Cheers and salutations. Smoke them if you got them.
But I am here with a man that I've been waiting to talk to for the last couple of years, Nico House.
As an educator, what I would suggest is that, first of all, podcasts like these are made.
So you need to be an example for the people and for the future, knowing that your words can actually change the future.
What do you feel? What would Kwame Ture feel we would have to do?
Well, politics is every day of every minute. You have to be aware of what's going on. Not voting on one day, so the vote has never meant anything. So I'm not a Democrat.
See, I would call that guy the Black Obama.
No. The issues that we talk about, listen to us.
As always, kids, labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.
INN News.
We're back. We did it. It's
Yay.
News. It's another Wednesday of a shitty week in a shitty month in a shitty year with the more shitty years in front of us. So, Skipper, how are you?
First of all, hold on. Can you fix your screens?
Yes. You want this?
There we
Is
go.
that better for you?
Yes, it's much better.
Yeah.
And what do you mean it's a shitty month? The month just got started.
Oh, shit. Here we go again.
It's another one, you know? So, bunch of distractions to weed through. Hopefully, we've avoided that here on this show. You know, stick to the issues and whatnot. But,
But yeah, I'm back, I guess. I took, well, I think I should say something, because I don't think I said anything formally, but yeah, but it's about, I guess, I think it was a somewhat of a forced sabbatical of mostly you. But yeah, so some of you, if you are fam or if you're new, welcome. But a few weeks ago, not to say I had a mental breakdown, but like I just lost it. I was going through personal shit in terms of I'm trying to lose weight. The day I went in for a DEXA scan just to see what I was dealing with, it's not bad, but I have work to do.
Yeah.
So so that and just stuff online as far as, you know, the reality is, you know, I'm not public like that, but like somewhat of a public figure. You get people saying stuff about you that is not necessarily true, or the people around you that is also not necessarily true. And all of that, and just like some other personal stuff I won't mention here. It was just I broke. And I've said this a lot, but it's hard doing this stuff, especially when we're demonetized, the channel is suppressed to hell. Sometimes I wonder if people are watching our content at all. So it just feels at times like a very thankless job, and I'm a teacher, so even in that sometimes is also another thankless job. So yeah, so it was just a lot. I think it was maybe 3 weeks ago now.
Yeah. What about that halfway into that third week or whatever? You were like, all right, I got some stories. I got. It's like, okay, you know. So
I wouldn't say in the middle, but I think like after the week, because that week I was going on vacation anyway, so I went to San Diego on vacation, had a great time, came back, you know, talked to people, and that being said, shout out to the people, you know, like Jesse, you, Indy, Sabby, JB from RBN, Nico, and a few others. Just wanted to make sure that was okay. And, you know, they really encouraged me, you know, because at that point I was like, I'm done. I am sick of independent media. As I said, thankless, and you don't get necessarily, and I don't do it to get recognized per se, but it's the idea of like, we're trying to do a service for people in terms of giving them truth and also giving them stories that, you know, people are not necessarily talking about that probably should. But having to do this every week in the midst of all like the drama within the space, but then drama within personalities within the space was just a lot. So, but shout out to those guys who encouraged me that.
You should have. I wanted to take a break that week. Are you kidding? I was like, this week's done.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
But
shout out to everybody who encouraged me to keep at it. And I think more importantly, just the idea that, like just people encouraging me is that you are needed in the space, and your voice is necessary, even when times when you don't necessarily think so. So yeah, I kind of took some time, step away a little bit, and yeah, I am back at least for now. That being said, moving forward, there will probably be some changes anyway, because just personal stuff as far as work, I'll be having a lot more responsibilities. But as much as I can, I am still committed to doing this show. But yeah, just really appreciate you guys. I think a lot of you noticed and were concerned about my well-being, and that meant a lot. So thank you guys for caring, and thank you guys for looking out for me. And I think that just proves, I think what we are kind of creating here is very special, and it meant a lot. So thank you all. Love you all.
Well, if you just missed it, Indy in the chat who's saying that was fun. They just had this stream a minute ago, so go check that out. I hear it got heated, so Scott pulls no punches, and that's how things go here. But good stream otherwise. So go check that out. Misty and Indy and Scott Horton will anti-war stream. We're trying to keep those things running. People are busy and whatnot. But we brought some stories, though, didn't we?
Yes.
What'd you bring? Speaking of anti-war?
So kind of got inspired by the Avengers, kind of with this, but somewhat. But so I know some channels have reported on this, but I think it is important to think about in light of recent events. We're not going to talk about it now, but you guys know Tim Walz is now Kamala's VP for this upcoming election. So kind of going along with that, being that people are now jumping the Kamala train in an effort to defeat Trump, people are not necessarily talking about the idea that the Biden administration has deployed Marines to be sent to the Middle East. So that could be very significant, especially in light of the escalation between Israel, Hezbollah, and Iran. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and I do have some thoughts. I know you do too.
Yeah,
about that. And then later on tonight, this kind of ties into. So those of you probably know, we had an interview last week with the wonderful, comparable Vanessa Beeley. And she talked about how back in the day, Israel contaminated Palestinian water supply with polio.
Typhoid
Well, it
in
seemed
1948.
typhoid.
But as
Typhoid,
many things,
yeah.
they poisoned the water
Among.
with. So, right. Yeah.
Well, Israel's continuing on their fuck shit. And is now, due to the destruction, has now causing a polio endemic in Gaza. So that kind of relates to what Vanessa was talking about. So I want to kind of bring both in terms of what Vanessa was talking about was what happened years ago, and this is what's happening currently in the midst of the genocide. So we'll talk about that later. And then what did you get?
Well, speaking of our interview with Vanessa, she said when we brought up BRICS to not get her started on India. Well, I figured I'd at least get started on India in her absence. So, BRICS ain't all it's said to be. I wish it was, but there are some people amongst the mixed here that might be a little iffy. So we're gonna go into that. I do like this face from BB there towards Modi, but
that's AI, right?
Yes.
At least
yeah.
Modi and BB. Okay.
Yeah, because they definitely look worse in person. But yeah, we'll talk about what they might be doing in regards to the Israel-Palestine conflict, whatever you want to call it, the genocide that is happening. But I also wanted to bring this up because I feel like a lot of our brothers and sisters don't understand this, and a few of them frequently go on this network. So, we're going to talk about who they might be funded by, who they have listened to, and who their peers are. So, speaking of peers, Murdoch, pretty much the same person. They should just share names at this point. But, you know, Rupert Murdoch, you know him, you love him, plenty of problems with him, so we'll get into it. But, yeah, that's what I brought. Anything else before we head into stuff?
No, I think, you know, you guys, most of you, know the drill. As I said earlier, we are demonetized. YouTube hates us. But we obviously need your support in order for us to continue this operation here. And we have a new fundraiser. So, Indie is in contact with the Zago brothers, who did, some of you probably saw their work featuring certain independent personalities maybe like a month or so ago.
Yeah.
So we are connecting with them because we do the Indie Media Awards in the fall, every fall. So we are looking to, so we connected with the Zago brothers in order to help us create portraits of past and upcoming honorees that we can feature, and through that, we're hoping to do some cool stuff that you guys might be interested in too. So stay tuned for that. But obviously, we want to try and help supplement the cost of them taking the time to produce these portraits. It does take a while, and they have a lot to do. So we're asking for $2,000 to help towards that cause. So if you're able to help us with that, please feel free to scan that QR code that we've so beautifully put up. You can also go to the link that you see underneath that QR code, ko-fi.com/indienewsnetwork. Or if you happen to forget, you can type in !donate in the chat and the link will come up, or you can check the link as well as all the other links of where you can donate to the channel in the description below. So, you know, as we say all the time, please don't feel compelled to give. Your presence, your subscribing, your sharing, your liking definitely helps the channel. We want you guys to take care of yourselves, take care of your neighbors, take care of your families first financially before you give to us. But if you do have some extra money and you feel compelled to give, especially with this upcoming fundraising project, we will appreciate it. And shout out to all of our past supporters who have donated to us in any way. You are featured on this screen here. And so we thank you so much. We love you. And yeah, help us get that $2,000 goal so we're able to offset the cost for the Zago brothers to create those portraits for us.
Yeah.
You can clap for that.
You ready to get for our first one? I'm ready.
Yes, I am. Actually, let me go back and check. Make sure it caught up. Why isn't that moving?
I don't know.
Oh, wait.
There it goes.
Oh. Okay, just delayed. Okay. All right. So, shout out to personalities who talked about this. I do want to kind of mention this because I think it's very significant, especially in light of recent events while I've been away. Obviously, we know now that Kamala is basically coordinated in as the next president to replace Biden. We know as of yesterday that she enlisted Tim Walz, who is governor of Minnesota, to become her running mate. That's the team to go up against Trump and Vance. I'm sure many of you know and I'm going to be extremely fair. Walz has done some nice things for Minnesota, but even with that, I would argue that those things shouldn't be considered progressive, in my opinion. That should be standard.
Yeah.
So that's just my take, but whatever. He has done some nice things, but he's also done some terrible things. Most importantly, being a Zionist shill. But along with that, while people have been oohing and eyeing, not you guys necessarily, but many of your neighbors and family and friends are oohing and eyeing over the 2 new shiny coins that Harris and Walz heading into the convention in 2 weeks from now. Jesus Christ, it's in 2 weeks. Biden has, I would argue, quietly deployed our Marines to head to the Middle East to counter as defense against the imminent, I would say, retaliation from possibly Iran, more than likely Hezbollah. So we know that Israel started that mess in part by assassinating the Hamas main Hamas negotiator a couple of weeks ago. So now, things are looking to be fucked up for Israel. So we are going to be like, well, we're the bitches, so we're going to send our troops over there. So as I said, I think this will be very significant, but I'll talk more about that later. But to begin, unfortunately, we have to do this because I want to be very careful in videos that we show right now. I think this is CNN. So don't want to say shout out to CNN, but shout out to CNN. I want to give you guys credit.
It's NNC, Colin.
I know.
NNC.
Right.
It's NNC.
Yeah. So CNN did report on this, so we're going to listen to about half of this as it pertains to this deployment, and we'll continue with the segment.
The U.S. is preparing to send fresh military assets to the Middle East, including a carrier strike group and a fighter squadron. It is bracing for a further escalation of hostilities as Iran vows retaliation for the killing of a senior Hamas leader in Tehran earlier this week. It blames Israel for the attack. Israel has not commented publicly either way. New today, the U.S. Embassy in Beirut, Lebanon, is telling Americans who want to get out of the country to book any ticket available. It's also warning those who do not leave that they, quote, should not rely on the U.S. government for assisted departure or evacuation in a crisis. I want to bring in now retired U.S. Army.
Don't rely on us, but rely on us for the crisis we're bringing you, but not to help you. Don't do that.
Right.
Major General Dana Pittard to talk more about this. General, I want to ask you to have a listen here to National Security Council spokesman John Kirby as he explains why exactly the U.S. is moving more resources into the region.
We've heard the Supreme Leader loud and clear that he intends to avenge this killing of a Hamas leader in Tehran and that they want to conduct another attack on Israel. We can't just assume that we aren't also potentially going to be victims of that kind of an attack. So we got to make sure we got the right resources and capabilities in the region.
So are these capabilities, should we presume the focus here is additional missile and drone defense, not just for Israeli targets, but also U.S. forces deployed in the region?
Well, good afternoon, Jim. I think what John Kirby said, and I know John Kirby, is that the U.S. military in America is just being prudent by sending a strike carrier force there, the USS Lincoln, a strike carrier group there. But it's to protect American assets as well as to help defend Israel in case Iran decides to attack. And it does look like Iran is going to do something just not sure what it is at this point.
So Iran, a number of weeks ago, launched dozens of missiles and drones at Israel, what was then an unprecedented attack. The missile defenses, which, by the way, weren't just the U.S. and Israeli, there were other partners, including Arab partners in the region. The missile defenses worked then. I imagine Iran will want to prove it could do better this time. So what might that kind of attack look like?
Well, as you mentioned, in April, nearly 300 drones, missiles, and other assets were fired at Israel, and it utterly failed. So this time, Israel should anticipate really a multi-directional attack.
It wasn't that they failed; those were more warning shots.
Yeah, like, and they still hit targets, like,
right. But they were strategic as far as trying. Well, I think they very much succeeded to not hit civilians, but to hit, I don't want to say property, but to hit
major
other
infrastructure
things.
and
Right. So that, again, it was just more of an idea of them saying, don't mess with us because we can do a lot more damage than this. And even just talking to certain folks who are a little more aware of this issue, Iran, because I basically said, well, Iran just let it rip. And people were like, no, they have to be very restrained because the optics of Iran rather, going ham on Israel, like, that's not going to look good for them. So right now they've been, if anything, Hezbollah has been the ones who have been like, let's go. And Iran has been like, no, we have to, like, they're put in a very awkward position here. But you notice how they were calling out Hamas. They're saying Hamas leader. They didn't mention that Israel assassinated a Hamas negotiator, which I think was not by accident. It's to give the idea like, oh, we got someone from Hamas, which, and I said this online maybe a few weeks ago, so also Israel is able to do targeted attacks, right? So there is no reason for you to indiscriminately kill thousands of Palestinians in the guise of, oh, we got to, like, Hamas is in the hospital, Hamas is in the tunnels, Hamas is here, Hamas is there.
Hamas is all around us. They're within us all.
Right. So, yeah, I just find it very interesting that they're kind of downplaying what Israel is doing here. And basically, it's the idea of, it's basically them saying, well, Israel has a right to retaliate and Iran basically cannot, which I think is bullshit. If Israel has the right to defend itself, so does every other country when they feel threatened. So, again, I think Iran has been very restrained. And the fact that they can and they haven't, I think, has shown how restrained they've been in order to prevent an escalation towards this assault.
Yeah.
You can go ahead.
Which includes everything from Iran itself, as well as Hezbollah to the north, Houthis to the south, and even Gaza to an extent, which would try to overwhelm the air defenses of Israel and Israel's regional allies.
So let me ask you this, because in the cycle of violence in the Middle East, and by the way, this has been going on for decades, if and when Iran carries out such an attack, Israel will then say it needs to respond to retain deterrence or reestablish deterrence and retaliate in some way. I'm trying to figure out how we get out of this cycle.
Well, I think it depends on how much damage is done by Iran against Israel. If it isn't a whole lot of damage, then that's where the U.S., through diplomatic actions, can talk to Israel and say, let's call it a day, so we can move on with the ceasefire in Gaza. Yeah. So I think it depends. It depends on the level of attack from Iran.
What is the danger that the U.S. gets drawn into this attack? I mean, it's going to participate likely in some way, largely if they can, right, in a defensive role, providing additional missile defense against and drone defense against any attack that would come from Iran and its proxies. But, I mean, there's a chance that U.S. forces are also hit there, as John Kirby was referring to, which might then generate a U.S. response of its own. So the risk for U.S. involvement, direct involvement, is quite high here, isn't it?
There is risk of Iran attacking U.S. forces, but that will be on Iran. Iran does not want to have a fight with both the United States and Israel. Iran wants to certainly save face because of the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh on its soil, but what Iran does not want is a full-blown war. In a full-blown war, Iran loses.
Yeah, and perhaps loses its nuclear facilities, which it's highly invested in. But before we go, as we look at this situation, which is again so familiar in the region, where is U.S. power at this point? Because there's been a lot of reporting, including by CNN, that the Biden administration has been constantly pressuring Israel to rein in some of its attacks, and yet these attacks continue and arguably get more aggressive. Is U.S. influence, not just in the region, but with Israel, is it declining?
I wouldn't say the U.S. influence is declining. U.S. forces and the U.S. influence in the Middle East is greater than any other power in the world. They're in the Middle East.
Don't lie.
But it is interesting that Israel has done these really 3 major assassinations. And that may be more on Prime Minister Netanyahu and his situation as far as politically in Israel and how he remains in power himself, as opposed to a waning of U.S. influence.
Yeah, his own partner, former partner in the war cabinet, Benny Gantz, has said quite similar. Major General Dana Petard, thanks so much.
Thoughts, Reef?
I mean, a couple of them. I don't know if you have what Nuno talked about today, right? But
no, I haven't.
But I might have been someone else and not Nuno. But that recently we said that like we would defend any American casualty, like by Iran or by Yemen or, you know, and then we just stuck our 2 big old aircraft carriers in their ocean, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
So, methinks they're trying to big stick their way into this, but they might find out. Which,
yeah,
that's not good. You know? So, yeah. Gonna be a fun time in World War III.
Yeah, and we're going to get into why this will not be good. I think the significance, especially given the election right now later. But shout out to Dave DeCamp. So I'm going to read 2 articles from him because I think they very much align with this segment. But he wrote last week, and we'll update this a little bit, where he writes, Biden tells Netanyahu the U.S. will defend Israel, pledges new military deployments, which we just heard in that CNN article.
You forgot that man's still president, huh? Y'all forgot that man's still president. Just saying.
Well,
I know you got shiny new lady president, but...
but anyway, President Biden spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Thursday and promised the U.S. would help defend Israel from any reprisal attacks it may face from Iran or its allies in response to recent Israeli escalations. Iran is vowing revenge for the Israel assassination of Hamas's political chief in Tehran, and Hezbollah is warning it will escalate in response to Israeli strike in Beirut that killed one of its top commanders. The president reaffirmed his commitment to Israel's security against all threats from Iran, including its proxy terrorist groups Hamas, Hezbollah, and Houthis, the White House said in a readout of the Biden-Netanyahu call. Biden also said the U.S. was deploying more military assets to the region. The president discussed efforts to support Israel's defense against threats, including against ballistic missiles and drones, to include new defense military deployments, the readout said. The White House said Vice President Kamala Harris was also on the call. So y'all are thinking that, oh, Kamala is going to be better on Israel than Biden? She hasn't said shit so far. But
nope. If anything, she just shouted down, like, protesters calling for
she did.
an end to the genocide. So, you know, not much is going to change. You know, nothing will fundamentally change, as they say.
A Pentagon official told the Washington Post that the U.S. had assembled 12 warships in the Middle East that were already in the region to prepare to defend Israel. The aircraft carrier USS Theodore Roosevelt and 6 U.S. Navy destroyers are in the Persian Gulf, while 3 amphibious ships and 2 destroyers are in the Eastern Mediterranean. U.S. officials told Axios that the U.S. is preparing for a direct Iranian attack on Israel and believes it could be bigger than the April 13th missile and drone attack that came in response to the Israeli bomb of the Iranian consulate in Damascus, Syria. The next attack could include Hezbollah and other Iranian allies. Biden, Harris, and other U.S. officials claim they're trying to reduce tensions, but additional U.S. military aid for Israel and vows to defend Israel no matter what it does in the region only emboldens Netanyahu and leads to more escalations. So, I mean, as we said, you know, like, this is kind of on par for the course of the Biden administration at this point. Like, people have been screaming at him ad nauseum to call for a ceasefire, do not give weapons to Israel, you know, call for a ceasefire, and yet he still continues to bid the bidding of Netanyahu, and now Kamala is also doing that same bidding, and now that we are deploying our military into the region to potentially now get into the middle of what has been an issue that Israel has started because they're being fucking petty, essentially. So Dave continues. So this was the end of the first article, and you sent this to me yesterday as an update. So Dave actually tweeted, does this matter to Genocide Joe or Kamala the kid killer? So he writes in an article that he published yesterday, scroll up. Majority of Americans oppose using U.S. troops to defend Israel. The Biden administration has committed to defending Israel from an expected Iranian reprisal attack. So, as you can imagine, the majority of Americans oppose the idea of U.S. troops being used to defend Israel if it comes under attack by Iran, according to a poll conducted by the Chicago Council on Global Affairs that was released yesterday.
Okay.
The poll, conducted from July 21st to July 1st, 2024, found that 56% of Americans oppose U.S. troops defending Israel, while 42% support the idea. Support for defending Israel is stronger among Republicans, with 53 in favor and only 32 of Democrats in favor. The survey also found that 55% of Americans oppose U.S. troops defending Israel if it comes under attack by a neighboring country. The results come in as the Biden administration is vowing to defend Israel from an expected Iranian reprisal attack for the killing of Hamas's political chief, Ismail Haniyeh, in Tehran. A major coordinated attack launched by Iran and its allies could result in American casualties, and the U.S. support for Israel risks a major regional war. The U.S. defended Israel from an Iranian attack in April, which came in response to the Israeli bombing on the Iranian consulate in Damascus, Syria. The Biden administration intervened directly to protect Israel and is pledging to do so again without any authorization from Congress or any debate on the matter. The Chicago Council showed the lowest level of support for defending Israel among Americans since the Chicago Council began asking the question in 2010. In 2015, 2018, and 2021, the majority of Americans, 53%, supported the idea. The Chicago Council attributed the lower level of American support for defending Israel to Israel's onslaught in Gaza. The unrelenting Israeli attacks against Gaza have likely dampened American willingness to defend Israel, especially among Democrats. Reads an article published on the Chicago Council website. So basically all it means
is
Biden
American
and
human shields is what it sounds like coming.
yes,
You know?
which, and also, right now, Biden and Harris and Waltz have all declared their loyalty to Israel. And I've said this online many times. If American casualties come in, and they come in hot through the fall, depending how much this assault escalates, people remember Iraq.
Yeah.
They're not going to be feeling this. So right now on this issue, if the Democrats, if the Republicans are smart, they will hit Kamala with this issue. Because as you said, and as I saw earlier, like they're doing a rally at least earlier today or right now, and I guess protesters were yelling in regards to what's happening in Israel, and basically Kamala was like, "Shut the fuck up."
Yeah.
I'm speaking.
Pretty much. If you want Trump to win, don't let me speak, essentially. Okay.
Right.
You know?
Wherever it should be, I want to listen to you because I actually care about getting your vote. And so I will do what I need to do in order to ensure that American lives are not being dashed away on account of us protecting Israel. So really, if they were smart, Democrats, they should be thinking that way. Conversely, if Republicans are smart, they should be hitting Kamala on that.
Yeah.
But we'll see if evil
party they won't.
will do that.
They won't. They're both bought by AIPAC. They're in J Street and everything. They're all bought. So that ain't happening. If anything, it will be performative in measure and mean nothing. You know? So good luck with that, you know? But
yeah,
sounds like we might be losing some American troops as boots on the ground soon. So
probably,
hopefully not. But
I don't. Hopefully not. But it's looking that way right now, and it's sad that people are not mentioning this. It's sad that not a lot of people have talked about this deployment.
Well, it also
and look how. Go ahead.
It also pushes people to like hate the region more. Really, like. I still have people who, because they lost friends in Afghanistan and Iraq, that all brown people from there are bad. You know?
Right.
Like, when the person who was over there who died probably wouldn't agree with you. You know? Like, you know, who probably lost his life defending large swaths of them. So, you know, I just find it funny that that's people wrap themselves up in the red, white, and blue with that, and all peaches and rainbows, you know. So,
right.
But yeah, that's the only thing I'm worried about, is that it emboldens the same thing that's being emboldened in the UK right now. So,
right.
You know, like it's the other. That's who we're fighting. We're fighting the other, and you know, just do what we say. So.
Right.
I don't know.
And some of you watched the the panel that I did on Savvy's show last week. And this was what I was trying to explain to Dana, the Republican representative on the panel. Like, you care about immigration, right? But when we're bombing these countries, you know, with our policy, and in this case, in light of Israel,
Yeah.
Where are those where are those refugees going to go? Where are those people going to go? You know, like they're already starting to do that in Lebanon, that they're basically saying for people to leave, evacuate. So where they're going to go? They're going to come to Europe, and they're going to come here, and they're going to, as you say, take your jobs, and you get mad at them. Right. You get mad at them for, and look, I understand why you get mad at them, but you're getting mad at the wrong entity. You should be getting mad at the administration and the bureaucracy and the military industrial complex that is causing this to happen, that is forcing people to leave because of the destruction that we're laying in their countries, and they have no choice but to come to Europe or America in order to seek refuge. But you're going to yell at them because they're taking your houses. And granted, the government shouldn't be necessarily giving these amenities just for nothing on account of our tax dollars. I totally understand that. But you have to look from a broader brush in terms of seeing what's happening globally to make the connection. Oh, this is not necessarily their fault. And I'm not saying that all immigrants are here for, you know, like nefarious reasons. Like there are definitely plenty of those immigrants that are here. But I'm talking about when it comes to war, that they're wanting to, that they're feeling the need to come here in order to be safe.
Yeah.
And you're getting mad at those immigrants for essentially having to leave from a place caused by our foreign policy. As we say, it's all connected. You can't just look at domestic policy in isolation and not think about how foreign policy might be affecting some of the issues that is driving a lot of the domestic issues that you claim to care about.
Right. Yep. Well, talking about these things is why we're demonetized. So you can go to ko-fi.com/indienewsnetwork, scan that QR code on your screen. If you're in the live chat with us, you put !donate. Links are in the description as always, but, you know, we appreciate all the financials you can help give us. And if you can't, you know, just like and subscribe. It is very easy. Share the stream, leave a comment, all the stuff every other YouTuber asks you to do. You do it for them? You don't do it for us? What's going on here? Huh? I'm looking at you. Don't make me press those buttons. Anyway. Alright. Rockfin and Rumble, right? We should check that before we get to that.
Yeah.
And you'll look at YouTube chat. Anna Mayer's holding it down on the Rockfin. We the people will only win when the military service members defect. That would be a nice just boycott. Have a whole military strike. You know, be like, nah, we ain't going.
Sure, that's not gonna happen though. We are lucky that Aaron Bushnell, rest in peace to him.
Oh my God,
he's been the only one so far. Well, no, he's not the only one. There have been more that have defected, but like
there've been a couple of them.
You know,
so
right. But
whole organizations full of them. But you know, this stuff's difficult to understand for people. Like, takes people a minute. It would be nice if they were quicker on the draw, but you know.
Right. Let me read some YouTube comments.
Yep.
So Bryce Smith said that was what was so annoying about Dana and her not making the connection. I guess we're going foreign policy. She kept talking and did no listening. Yeah, I think honestly she had her prepared talking points prepared.
Yeah.
And she was just spouting them off without any nuance at all. So I agree. I think she was there to kind of run off her talking points and not necessarily listen and make the connection as to what I and Nico were trying to say to her. So, let's see. Max Sarjay says, and they want to draft your children. Yeah. Like,
yeah, that's people don't do stuff unless it personally affects them. So.
Right.
The more this personally affects them.
Not even my parents. Not even to my parents. My older sibling.
Yeah.
Like, who told me? Like, now granted, when they told me, I was not old enough, but like I wasn't going into the military services anyway. But my siblings were the ones who told me, do not fight in a white man's war. Don't ever. And one of my sisters especially said that because my nephew, her son, ended up going into the Marines, which she was not happy about. Rather, he has been able to make a decent life of himself and the family and all that, but she didn't enjoy the idea initially of him choosing to go into the military service, in a fight, in the sense to fight in assaults and wars like these. So, but yeah, tell your friends if they're in the military, get the fuck out, because before too long, if this continues to escalate, they might be heading to the Middle East. And then there's going to be more casualties on account of the US. So hopefully we don't have that happen, but the powers that be, they don't care. We're disposable as fuck. So
unfortunately, which don't look at those. Don't look at those army demographics. Don't look at those. Don't look and see who's actually fighting your wars. But it ain't us fair complexioned. Ain't us. And there's a reason that's happening. The same reason everything else is happening. So as always,
capitalism.
But you want to get to this story? Let's go. So we've talked about India before. Care Bear, it's not all rainbows and sunshine over there. We covered them literally hiding their pores when diplomats show up. We talked about them doing lots of things, but tonight we're going to talk about how they're connected with Israel and how you might not want that eye in bricks. Unless they get their mind right suddenly. But, your buddy Brett Wilkins over at Sheerpost, writes Arundhati
Why are you
Roy.
calling him my buddy?
He's your buddy, He comes on, he likes you.
He's yours too.
Yes, he is. So Arundhati Roy, India must stop arming Israel or forever be linked to the genocide. So August 4th, 2024. Acclaimed Indian author and activist Arundhati Roy this week joined prominent jurists, diplomats, artists, and others in urging their government to stop selling weapons to Israel, which they called abominable, like the snowman, and a serious violation of India's obligations under international law and our constitution. Speaking Thursday, an event organized by the Press Club of India, Roy, winner of the 1997 Booker Prize for her debut novel The God of Small Things, said that Indians must at least show that we do not support that murder in Gaza. We do not support our government's support of that. Sounds simple enough. What is happening in Gaza, it is not just the murder of tens of thousands of women and children, she continued. It's the bombing of hospitals, the destruction of universities, the attempt to erase the very memory people have of that place. It is a genocide like no other because it's taking place on live TV. The Indian government is complicit in the genocide that Israel is conducting in Gaza. India used to be a country that supported the people of Palestine in their struggle for freedom, Roy noted. Everywhere, even in the United States, people are standing up against the government's support for Israel, but we are not standing up, and that is a shame. We must stand up, we must refuse, she asserted. We will not support the export of weapons of any kind. Export of weapons, Collin? You thought we were the only ones giving them weapons? Well, the Indian government is complicit in the genocide that Israel is conducting in Gaza. It is our responsibility to show that. Did we just read that? I think so. Refuse to be complicit in that, even if our government wishes to continue with what it does. We want these weapon exports to stop immediately. Roy is one of more than 24 former Indian Supreme Court justices and other judges, foreign service officers, academics, artists, activists, and others who on Wednesday sent a letter to Indian Defense Minister Rajnath Singh urging him to halt the license of arms to Israel, whose military forces have killed or wounded more than 140,000 Palestinians while obliterating and starving Gaza. The ICJ has clearly ruled that Israel is in violation of obligations under the Genocide Convention, and further that Israel is in illegal occupation of the occupied Palestinian territory. The letter states, in light of these rulings, any support of military material to Israel would amount to a violation of India's obligations under international humanitarian law and the mandate of Article 21, read with Article 51C of the Constitution of India. So, thoughts so far, Colin?
I mean, we've talked about this, and even Vanessa kind of confirmed, well, not to say we need her confirmation, but she did, you know, regarding India and how two-faced they've been in terms of, you know, like, and not just them, but, you know, in terms of having one foot in terms of, you know, trying to bring about BRICS, but also another foot as far as Western interests. So this doesn't surprise me at all. In fact, it's actually more of a confirmation that I've been and we've been very mixed on BRICS. And people talk about BRICS as it's a good thing. But again, a lot of the larger countries within BRICS are still tied to Western interests. So how effective are they truly going to be, or how are they really going to stand against the West when they're using a lot of Western bureaucracy in order to try and make themselves viable?
Well,
that
not
doesn't make
just
sense to me.
like we've talked about Elbit systems in the past, right? And how they're connected here, connected in the UK. Well, guess where else they're connected? Among the weapons India has sent to Israel are Hermes 900 unmanned aerial drones, which are co-manufactured with Israel arms company Elbit Systems. The letter notes that drones have been extensively used in the Israeli Defense Force military campaign. Several UN experts have warned that the transfer of weapons and ammunition to Israel may constitute serious violations of human rights and international humanitarian laws and risk state complicity in international crimes, possibly including genocide, reiterating their demand to stop transfers immediately, the letter signer wrote. So, that's that drone right there, that little Hermes. I'm sure it has lovely packages to drop on people. Made in Hyderabad?
Sure.
I'm gonna say. Currently in active deployment in the intense Israel-Hamas conflict, as stated here at NDTV News. Whoever that is. In short, the grant of licenses and approvals for export of military material to Israel, coupled with reports of such exports by Indian companies, constitutes a serious violation of India's obligations under international law and our own constitution. International law aside, we consider such exports to be morally objectionable, indeed abominable. The signatories added, we demand therefore that India should immediately suspend its collaboration in the delivery of military material to Israel. Further, India must immediately make every effort to ensure that weapons already delivered to Israel are not used to contribute to acts of genocide or violations of international humanitarian law. Good luck with that shit. You know? But the letter came ahead of planned nationwide protests by Indian leftists on Saturday, calling for an end to arms sales and all forms of complicity with Israel's illegal occupation and genocide. India, which in 1971 invaded Bangladesh, then East Pakistan, in large part to end a U.S.-backed Pakistani genocide, mostly targeting Bengalis, voted in favor of the December UN Security Council's resolution calling for an immediate Gaza ceasefire. So there it is, right? 3rd August nationwide protest by India's left parties for Palestine. Demands to the Indian government are cancel all export licenses for arms supply to Israel, halt all arms imports from Israel, and all forms of complicity with Israel's illegal occupation and genocide. So, I mean, sounds like a start, you know?
Sure.
So, but, yep. However, the administration of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and many lawmakers from his right-wing Bharatiya Janata Party, there we go, I got it out eventually, expressed steadfast support for Israel and its Gaza onslaught. Critics have noted that both Israel and India are occupying Muslims, the former in Palestine and the latter in Jammu and Kashmir. In an interview with Middle East Eye published Friday, Roy, who faces prosecution in India over comments she allegedly made 15 years ago regarding Kashmir, said that India could forever be linked to genocide if it does not change course. Might be too late. India needs to stop the export of weapons to Israel and ensure the return of Indian workers who have been sent to Israel to replace Palestinian workers. Where have we talked about that before, Collin?
Indian workers?
In this case, India workers, but
yeah,
in other
we've
cases,
talked about that with Africa,
right?
We've talked about that with Africa
and Thailand,
so
as well,
right?
So cheap labor forces that Israel tends to use. If it does not do so at once, it is in violation of the orders of the ICJ. It will forever be complicit in aiding and abetting a genocide that is being telecast live for the world to watch. Closing thoughts, Collin? I mean, pretty short.
Yeah, what else needs to be said other than India is
got some
India
issues.
is duplicitous. They're duplicitous in terms of, claiming that, they care about these global issues, but then they side with the West in terms of, but we've talked about this, we read about this, how they've had deals with France in order to get weapons. So so I'm not surprised by this at all. But again, it makes me think twice about BRICS and how effective that's going to be, especially with India as large of a economy as they have, will be leading the charge along with Russia and China. And honestly, even with Russia and China, while I think of them a little bit slightly, I don't completely, trust them either. So it's like, and I understand why, they're trying to bring BRICS together. But again, if you're trying to create it based on Western values, then, or at least that type of imperialism in this case, then how much better are you in compared to like the G7 nations?
Yep. No, it makes sense to me. So, keep an eye out, especially if you're going to model it after the World Bank. Probably not the best thing to do.
Right.
Because that's been such a force for good. I mean, I get the problems are mainly us in that, but at the same time, and if you want to give to our little World Bank, you could scan that QR code on your screen or use code-v.com/indienewsnetwork. You can go right there to that, or it's in the description below, or you can put !donate in the chat. Plenty of ways to send us money. Mail it to us, carrier pigeon, we'll take whatever we can get. We're trying out here. But if you can't do that, like and subscribe, hit the share button, leave a comment, let us know what you think. What do you think about it? Let us know. But, otherwise, thanks for watching. Alright. To the chats. What do we got? Inamir's probably still holding it down on Rockfin. No one on Rumble yet either. If you're one of those lizard people in the chat, use those opposable thumbs. Let us know. Let us know what you got going on. Type in that chat and whatnot. But anyway, what do you got in the other chat, Collin?
So let me see. Bryce against India ain't shit. Max Sarge, Belt and Road policies are still exploiting Africa and a lot of other places, but not as bad as the United States play. Just coup, I guess that's
Couple
coup
of
countries
countries.
when they like.
Yeah.
Couple of countries when they like.
I think just 2 countries. It sounds about right. But yeah. Indy trying to beat you to that Congo question. So yeah, Congo and Thailand, right? We talked about Congo specifically, I think. Forget what that's titled.
No, it's not Congo. It's it wasn't Congo.
No?
No.
Ghana, maybe?
I'll look it up, but
yeah. Definitely.
I don't think it was Congo.
Some of our African brothers and sisters out there getting recruited to go over there.
Yeah, it's that. Yeah.
So
now I'm kind of curious. So I'll look it up later and figure it out. But yeah, it's not Congo though. It could be, but I don't think it is.
Probably a bit of both, you know?
Yeah, maybe. Well, Congo's going through their own exploitation
Malawi
anyway. So.
Indy asks.
Yeah,
maybe.
Malawi. Yes, Malawi. That's it. Yeah, the Malawi.
Yep.
Yeah, Indy got it.
Well,
see, Indy watches, listens.
He watches. He pays attention.
Anyway,
you ready for the next one?
Yep. So I wanted to pull this story because, as many of you know, we interviewed Vanessa Beeley last week. She kind of mentioned something similar to this in regards to typhoid, or Israel contaminating Palestinian water supply with typhoid back in the day. So now we have an issue with a polio endemic now in Gaza. So I feel honestly, I feel we should have a playlist of the destruction of Gaza. Like we've talked about the schools, we talked about the healthcare infrastructure, we talked about the food, we talked about, the state of living, we talked about women's issues, and now we got to talk about polio. So yeah, not I mean, it's sad, but given what is happening, and again, like people are, I don't want to say people don't care, but I think people have jumped ship because, as you said, it's like Trump bad, so it's a matter of winning at the expense of Palestinians at this point. I think it's just kind of sick.
I thought this was America.
I want to play. I just want to make sure. I think, this is from Reuters. They reported on, this epidemic in Gaza. So let's check out what they have to say, and then we will continue the segment. The HWO says there's a high risk of polio spreading across the war-ravaged Gaza Strip and beyond.
Thank you very much. This is not only because of the detection, but because of the very dire situation with water sanitation. As you may be aware, this virus is spread through fecal oral way of transmission. In addition to that, as I said, the functionality of the health facilities, especially primary healthcare services that provide vaccination and other maternal and child health services to the population in Gaza, is critical, is basically not functioning that it used to function before. Also, it may spill over internationally, is at a very high point. So we would, together with the partners, need to work around the clock to make sure that the epidemiological investigation is complete, risk assessment is complete. This is going to be a very bad situation that we may face in Gaza, and we may have more people dying of different communicable diseases than from the injury-related diseases, conditions.
The fact that polio is now becoming a thing again is terrifying. So I brought this article. We haven't done Truth Out in a minute. But this is from Sharon Zhang, who we like generally. And she generally has been very vocal in terms of her support for Palestine. So she writes, Palestinian health officials declare polio epidemic in Gaza. Israel's assault is risking the resurgence of a type of polio that was declared eradicated a decade ago. So, so she continues. Gaza to be a polio epidemic area due to Israel's relentless assault and deadly humanitarian blockade, portending yet more horrific circumstances being forced on Palestinians in coming months, unless Israeli officials agree to a ceasefire soon. Health officials declared the epidemic in a post on Telegram and warned that it will not only affect Palestinians in Gaza, but also people in neighboring countries. I guess that should include Israel as well. So if they care, they will do what they need to do to prevent it. But I think
a plague upon their houses.
Of sorts, yeah.
When do the frogs come, Collin? When do they come?
Although I would argue that Israelis have the means to leave if that happens.
Yes,
so
they do. They can wander the desert for a while if they need to.
Right. Not sure about the Lebanese or the Syrians or maybe even the Egyptians or Iranians. So, the announcement comes after international health officials announced earlier this month that they have detected the virus that causes polio, specifically polio type 2, in multiple wastewater samples from across Gaza. The epidemic poses a health threat to the people of Gaza, to neighboring countries, and a setback to global efforts to end polio, the ministry said. It called for immediate intervention to end Israel's genocide and address the sanitation catastrophe that has resulted from Israel's assault on Gaza's sanitation system. Health officials have been close to eradicating polio worldwide for years, with type 2 having been declared eradicated in 2015. But with this epidemic, polio may soon spread to nearby areas like Egypt. Children of Gaza and beyond are particularly at risk as the World Health Organization stopped including immunization from type 2 polio about a decade ago, a decision some have criticized. Polio virus is spread through the consumption of fecally contaminated water or food and can cause paralysis in affected individuals. The spread of disease in Gaza,
other contaminations cause it too. Which we'll get to.
Right. The spread of disease in Gaza, including poliovirus, hepatitis A, and others, has been counted nearly unmitigated for months, with hundreds of thousands of tons of trash strewn about in large piles, vermin and bugs swarming, and sewage filled the streets where children play and people travel. Conditions are especially bad in al-Mawasi, which encompasses the supposed humanitarian safe zone Israel declared amidst its invasion of Rafah in May and has since bombed many times. The area is essentially nothing but desert and lacks basic infrastructure. Oxfam said in June that there are only 121 bathrooms for 500,000 people sheltering there, or 4,130 people per toilet.
Dude,
the area has grown more crowded since June.
Could you imagine the wait just to, like, bro, I gotta wake up and, like, run to the potty, bro.
No, I'm trying to imagine. No offense, but when I lived in Africa, I had to use a outhouse.
Yeah.
And they were fairly clean, but they had a funk to them. So, so it's just the stink that I cannot imagine. I'm sure it's like, no, I can't. Yeah, I'm sure if I was in that situation, I would probably throw up, just given.
I mean, we know, we've talked about that these 10 cities are around hospitals, what's left of them, right? So that's probably real great for the sanitary conditions within those facilities. So, I don't know what else they can do. Like, I saw Israelis today literally tearing apart water sources for Palestinians. Like, in summer heat, like the any and all costs for them. So, but anyway,
Advocates for Palestinian rights have called on the Biden administration to recognize the polio crisis and to act aggressively to pursue a ceasefire and ensure that polio vaccines immediately reach the population of Gaza. The Israeli military has already announced that it will be offering vaccines to its soldiers, but has said nothing about limiting the spread of the virus for Palestinians. Health officials have said that they have not yet detected any cases of paralysis caused by the polio virus, but Israel's assault has rendered disease surveillance virtually impossible.
Also, good luck getting Palestinians to take any needle that you give them at this point. You know?
Right.
Like, that's going to be a tough sell right now, too. So, yeah.
Last week, U.S. health workers who have volunteered in Gaza amid the genocide said that every single person they encountered in Gaza was sick, injured, or both, with little accounting of disease. It's possible then that there could be many cases of polio infecting people that have gone undetected, the healthcare worker noted. For instance, that they estimate that tens of thousands of Palestinians have been killed due to Israel's famine campaign, but have not been counted due to Israel's destruction of the healthcare system and other basic infrastructure.
Yep.
I didn't
Yeah, it's
realize I
just
was not sure.
the preview is not there either, but this has got to be our clip, right?
Yes.
Cool.
So if you watched our interview with Vanessa last week or since, you would know, or hopefully you would know, that she talked about how Israel contaminated their waters with typhoid. So which kind of
we
relates.
covered.
So it's kind of more or less
Literally our
So it's
first
basically the
coverage into
same.
Palestine.
Right. So basically they're using, well, it's not to say they're using the same tricks. It's just the idea of like, just
Very
due to the
similar
bombing
ones.
and just blowing up structure, it's like they have no means to clean it up, at least right now, so that, you know, a lot of this disease is beginning to fester. So we're going to watch a clip where Vanessa mentions that, just to make that connection. So you can go ahead, Reef.
Yeah, she's got some thoughts about what's really causing this. So,
Who are these people?
I mean, you're hearing now about a polio outbreak. Well, if you actually read someone like William Engdahl, who had polio when he was 5 years old and was paralyzed as a result, he's done a huge amount of research into it. And his claim is basically that it's not a virus. Polio comes from the introduction of a toxin into the body, into the brain. And at that time, of course, when he contracted polio was when the use of DDT was sanctioned, and it was basically being sprayed everywhere. And there is, according to him, a correlation between the then prohibition of DDT and the drop in polio cases. And so now what we're suddenly seeing in Gaza, which immediately set off my alarm bells, quite rightly after what you said, the poisoning of the water with typhoid previously, and that's, I'm quite sure it's been done multiple times, particularly in Gaza, because Gaza is a 40-kilometer by 12-kilometer extermination camp, and Israel totally controls all the water, for example, and all the food that comes into that camp. So how easy is it to introduce disease into that camp if you want to, for want of a better word, cull the population, right? I mean, there are diseases in Gaza that, considering the relatively healthy lifestyle they have when they're not being bombed by Israel, is unusual, and there's been a huge spike, as far as I know, in cancer cases and so on and so forth. But suddenly there's an outbreak of polio. And actually, I was talking to William about this, William Engdahl, on Saturday. And what he said to me, well, you know, the polio could have been introduced, but it could also be present in the conditions that are there anyway, because, you know, there's raw sewage in the streets and in the makeshift camps. All the water supply has been destroyed, the water tanks. There was a video only a few days ago with the Zionists blowing up, you know, the big water siphons, no, what do you call them? The huge bulk water carrier things, and blowing them up. So it could be that whatever is causing the polio has been introduced by the appalling sanitation conditions anyway. It could be that it has been introduced as a toxin, but then of course, what's going to happen next? The rollout of the vaccine. And what faction of society does polio affect? Children under the age of 5.
Right.
So, I mean, you know, it doesn't take a huge amount to figure out what's happening here.
Who are these people?
Yeah.
You know what? I wasn't gonna do this, but I'm gonna pull an article that I want you to
pull up.
Show. Yeah.
Yep.
So hold on. Let me just send it to you on Discord because, you know, kind of going along with what Vanessa was saying. So I found this, like I stumbled upon this article a couple of days ago, and I tweeted this out basically saying, you know, here's your genocidal intent. So this is from the Times of Israel. So this is Israeli media that Smolarich, I think he's the defense person, said, it may be justified to starve 2 million Gazas, but the world won't let us. Far-right minister expresses support for reselling Gaza, said October 7th. Wouldn't have happened if it hadn't not been for the 2005 disengagement from the Strip. This was written by Toy Staff. Actually, you can scroll down for me, please, because I want you guys to hear the batshit craziness in regard like that. What the Israelis is. Finance Minister, yes, finance. Okay, Finance Minister Bezalel Smolarich implied on Monday that he believes blocking humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip is justified and moral, even if it causes 2 million civilians to die of hunger. But the international community won't allow that to happen. So basically, he's saying the protests are working.
Yeah.
Right? So Israel can't do exactly what it likes to do because of your protesting and your countering politicians and calling them out. And Israel basically right now is kind of like stuck. So shout out to the people who called out Kamala today. And honestly, I hope that hurts her because she can't say, because she said, I think last week, oh, we care about the Palestinians and we need to help them. But you're going to disavow people who are calling you out in terms of your complicity in this genocide, you know, and not doing anything for them because of So, and as I said in the previous stream, if Republicans are smart, they're not going to be. But if they were, this is something that they will call out on Kamala, you know, for taking down protesters and not doing anything regarding Israel. So, but as you said, they're not going to do that because they're shills to the Israeli lobby too. And so they're going to miss that as an opportunity to, you know, counter Kamala on policy versus identity politics.
Yep. Sounds about right. I just love how his whole thing in this is hostages. You know? Like, we gotta starve them out more so that they give it. You don't fucking give a fuck about the hostages, bro. Sorry.
Right.
If you did, you would have been already accepting the 9 deals put in front of you, which you haven't done. So, good luck with that. you know. Anyway, anything else? I think that's it.
I think that, yeah.
Well,
yeah, I just wanted to read that because, you know, like people are like, well, what's their intent? What's their intent? Israel is basically
said their
saying
intent.
and doing their intent.
Yeah.
And I feel they're saying this because they know, like, y'all not going to do shit. So we can afford to say it. We can afford to do these atrocities because we can get away with it. So, but anyway, talking about stuff like this is why we're demonetized. So if you want to support us and help us out, please feel free to scan the QR code on your screen. So to all, I don't want to say boomers, but to all the people who may not know how to use it, all you have to do is open the camera app on your phone, hold it to the screen with the QR code. It will scan and the link will pop up.
Yep.
Or you can type in the website, kofi.com/indienewsnetwork in order to support us on Ko-fi. Or if you forget the link, you can type !donate, and the link will pop up in the chat if you want to donate there. If you want to donate in other areas such as CashApp and Venmo, those links are in the description as well. Like I said, we always appreciate you guys supporting us. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to help us fight the suppression that YouTube is putting us through, and to make sure you leave a comment. We do read them and we do respond to them. So say something nice, or if you're going to be critical, be nice anyway. And maybe we will respond. And especially if you have stories that you would like us to cover, please let us know and help us get to 3K. I'm going to say 5K because just a bigger number.
Yep.
That way we won't have to keep changing it every 1,000.
Whatever.
But what, and thank you guys for watching.
I'll head to Anna says, glad you are feeling better, Collin. Don't quit. We need you and your unique perspective. Anna always holding it down on Rockfin.
Thank you.
You know, I don't know when we're going to get our Rockfin channel back. That would be nice. Rockfin, if you're listening, like, you know, help us out. But Rumble's all lizard people. I see. No opposable thumbs to type in chat. But YouTube is definitely popping, so Mouse SF statements like that are a violation of Nuremberg in themselves. You know, replying to Smotras's we can starve them, pretty much. So Earl of Laurel, sure I heard your voice giving AOC a hard time too. If that was you, keep doing the good work. I do believe that was you,
Yep, that was me. Yeah, so yes, that was me 3 years ago. Actually, probably 3 years ago to the day, pretty much. With that tweet going viral, that clip going viral to the point that Jimmy used it, I think in his comedy show that year, at least briefly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, my little thing. I think actually that was kind of the thing that kind of catapulted me in independent media was
that
me
one?
and Franco calling out AOC at the Capitol steps. Yeah.
And Corey
so
Bush.
You.
I mean, that's when they turned the machines on you, right?
Yeah. Well, who cares? Because now she's gone. Well, she's gone.
She gone.
Which I will say for Corey, I don't want to be too harsh. Because I remember, like, in 2020 when I was beginning to get more involved in politics, and I remember, like, in the Discord that I was in at the time, you know, this was back in 2020, we were talking about Corey, and I know a lot of people, myself included, were very cautiously optimistic about her. You know, being that she was an activist, and she really did a lot of great stuff in terms of Ferguson. But I would argue the only reason why she probably got into Congress, and I don't want to say this in a negative way, but because of George Floyd. Same thing with Bowman.
Yeah.
So, like, they were able to ride that wave of that was kind of trending in order to make their case as far as, you know, Black issues regarding police brutality, that against their more moderate counterparts at the time, they were able to win. Well, now, as we've seen, that shift in the older term windows shifted back to moderate. So now, you know, they were essentially the weakest links. And I think Ilhan Omar's primaries next week. So we'll see. And she just barely won this last term. So we'll see if she's able to hang in there. I think the rest of the squad members will probably be fine. Tlaib will be fine because she lives in a very Muslim Arab strong community. She's said the right things somewhat regarding Palestine. So I think for that, AOC, I think she's just too powerful at this, or growing into that at this point. So unless there's someone that is really good that can kind of overtake her in New York, I think she's also fine. So it's just a matter of getting rid of the two weakest links. Well, three if you count Ilhan Omar, because Ilhan has just been all over the place. So we'll see what happens with her. But, you know, but yes, so thank you. And yes, that was me.
Yep. And he also mentioned that you had some courage and held your own on that Savvy panel. Earl of Laurel. Helpful harm. Yeah, like we gave polio to the indigenous here.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Pretty much par for the course. But yeah, I mean, definitely keep an eye on that kind of stuff over there. You know, I'm surprised that there's still, we still, like, it's not over yet. That would be nice in one way or another at this point. But, you know, also media is complicit, Collin, in the genocide in Gaza, particularly this guy and that guy and the guy behind that guy. But Piers Morgan, Rupert Murdoch, some of you who lived through Iraq and Iran understand why these fucking two douchebags are around, you know, and you remember what they said about things back then. But, Alan McLeod over in Mint Press, writes Rupert Murdoch, Israel's most powerful supporter. So you're going to see what that has consequences to. So, but, yeah, I just wanted to bring this because we've seen a lot of our brothers and sisters head over to Talk TV and its affiliates and not have a great time. So we're going to figure out why that might be. I'm betting you have some ideas, Collin.
Yes.
So, without a sympathetic media, Israel's powerful military would be next to useless in its attempts to ethnically cleanse Gaza. It relies on crucial Western support for its project, and NOAA's important in manufacturing consent for Israel, as Rupert Murdoch. The Australian-born Press Baron has close and extensive personal ties to the Israeli political elite and myriad business connections to the country. He has used his media empire to defend Israel and sing its praises even amidst an attack on Gaza, commonly condemned as genocidal. As such, his holding effectively served as an unofficial arm of the Israeli propaganda machine. So, the Murdoch machine companies well over 100 newspapers, some of them among the world's most well-known and influential, as well as dozens of TV channels and a formidable publishing empire. This power allows him to set the political agenda across much of the world. Former British Prime Minister Tony Blair claimed that Murdoch was an unofficial member of his cabinet, and that he was one of the four most powerful men in the UK. President Joe Biden, meanwhile, has described him as the world's most dangerous individual. His influence on American public life, right, through ventures like the Wall Street Journal and Fox News is well documented. Less understood, however, are his close ties to Israel, and in particular to its political leadership.
Pause. So it's like Biden, he's dangerous. Also Biden, I'm a shell for Israel.
Yeah, pretty much. In 2010, Israeli newspaper Yedoth Abronoff, Jesus Christ, we gotta work on these names over here, Israelis. Y'all gotta work on some stuff we Westerners can say. Published a leaked list compiled of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, of whom he considers his best sources of campaign contributions. Murdoch's name appears on the list alongside the designation of number 2, meaning Netanyahu considered him a close ally and one of the most likely sources of funds. An estimated 98% of Netanyahu's contributions came from abroad. So, yeah, this right here, Care Bear. Few good names in that list. Donald Trump, Eli Broad, Carl Icahn, Robert Kraft, Summer Redstone, Rupert Murdoch right there. If we can see that, Rupert Murdoch. Any others that you can see?
Haim Saban.
Oh yeah.
Who we've talked before.
Yes, we have.
Rest I can't read or don't know.
Yep. William Davidson, Robert Kraft. Yeah, quite a Robert Perlman, Ronald Perlman, however you say that guy's name. But anyway, that is the list they are referring to. So at 93, Murdoch has relinquished much of the day-to-day running of his businesses to his son, Lachlan. Early this year, Lachlan traveled to Israel to meet Netanyahu and former Prime Minister Benny Gantz. While the details of the meetings remain murky, it is clear that support for the Israeli offensive in Gaza and beyond was the principal topic. This was not the first time the younger Murdoch had met Netanyahu. In 2016, he flew to Israel for secret meetings with the Prime Minister, where, according to local newspaper Haaretz, has attempted to convince Murdoch to purchase Yedoth Abronoff and to start a Fox News-style TV channel for Israel. Is that Ynet? Can someone in the chat tell me if that's what that is? It might be. Like, Yedoth Abronoff. I think that's what Ynet is, but I could be wrong. But Netanyahu, however, is far from the only prime minister.
Yep, it's Ynet.
Okay. Prime minister with a close relationship with Murdoch. Ariel Sharon, for instance, has enjoyed a decades-long friendship with the Australian mogul. Murdoch stayed with him on his farm and was treated to a helicopter tour of Israel, where the supposed vulnerability of Israel from its hostile neighbors was stressed. Literally pointing at brown people from a helicopter is what that sounds like.
Right.
Oh no, that's where they are. In this walled prison we've made. In addition to his political ties, Murdoch has several economic commitments to Israel. This is the big part, right? So in 2010, he and banking billionaire Lord Jacobs Rothschild, if anyone would like their carrot spread, it is available at the Dollar Tree. But Jacobs Rothschild...
Don't tell me you bought that just to make that joke.
I've had that just for that joke. What do you mean? Just to have Rothschild's Moroccan carrot spread. With real Moroccans. But anyway, Jacobs Rothschild each purchased equity stakes in Genie Energy and joined the company's board of directors. While he was on the board, Genie was awarded a contract to drill for oil and gas over approximately 400 kilometers, which is more than square meters, of Golan Heights, Syrian territory that Israel has illegally occupied since 1967. Who would have thought this is about the oil fields? Who would have thought, Collin?
I mean...
Yeah. So people are seeing my sounds cutting in and out. I'll try to work on that here in a second. Syrian territory that Israel has illegally occupied since 1967. In effect, Genie was attempting to profit from an occupation deemed illegitimate under international law. So, thoughts so far, Care Bear?
I mean, Murdoch is a bad dude. Well, Biden said it. And very powerful. So, and so those of you who don't know, like, what's it say? PIERS, his show, is funded by Murdoch.
Right.
So it's not,
which we'll
even
get
though
to.
he claims that he left, mainstream media to start his own, he actually, and I would argue some of those programs Murdoch owned anyway. His own show now is still owned by Murdoch. So he's not truly independent. So that's why he's kind of like, do you condemn Hamas basically every episode he's on, with these guests. So, but it just shows how rich and how powerful this guy is, that he's able to have that kind of influence in media.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense.
You heard of NDS?
No.
Let's see what it stands for, because we should know that. NDS. Israel.
Software.
Yeah. It's like part of Cisco, I think.
Okay.
So yeah, NDS Technologies. Israel Limited, that kind of stuff. Will be sold to Cisco for $5 million, sounds like. Something like that. 5 million. Acquired by Cisco in 2012. But anyway, Murdoch also owned Israeli software company NDS, which was the center of a hacking scandal that brought down British television company ITV Digital. NDS's activities helped huge numbers of Britons access paid TV for free, causing the corporation to fold under reduced revenues. Another ethnically questionable connection is Murdoch's reliance on lobbying from LLM Communications. The billionaire hired the group, co-funded by Lord Jonathan Mendelsohn, to help them overturn British government laws that ensured trade unions could ballot for workplace recognition. Lord Mendelsohn was the chairman of the Israeli lobbying group Labour Friends of Israel, which was crucial in smearing and defeating the leadership of Jeremy Corbyn, a lifelong peace activist and proponent of Palestinian rights. In case you're wondering how that happened. My ventures in media are not as important as me as spreading my personal political beliefs, Murdoch said, and supporting for Israel and its expansionist policies is one of the core values that Australian has timelessly worked towards. At a 2009 meeting of the American Jewish Committee, he explained that he saw Israel as the linchpin underwriting Western civilization. He says, "In the West, we are used to thinking that Israel cannot survive without the help of Europe and the U.S. I say to you, maybe we should start wondering whether we in Europe and the United States can survive if we allow the terrorists to succeed in Israel. In the end, the Israeli people are fighting the same enemy we are. Cold-blooded killers who reject peace, who reject freedom, and who rule by the suicide vest, the car bomb, and the human shield."
Which is basically the same speech that Bibi gave last week.
Yep.
Basically.
Yep.
So we talk about anti-Semitism. This is straight up full-throated Islamophobia right here.
Yep.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. This is okay. But to call out Israel for the war crimes that they're committing is anti-Semitic. Bullshit.
And keep in mind who actually uses human shields, but whatever.
Right. Every accusation is a confession.
And who started the car bomb thing?
and who started the suicide vest thing, and it's like
every accusation is a question.
Where do you think they learned it from, dog? Like, anyway. Right. In 2005, he wrote the foreword to the book Israel and the World, Changing Lives Through Innovation, a fawning tome lionizing Israel as an unqualified success that has built a robust democracy and a vibrant economy despite setbacks and threats from its neighbors. It's the only democracy in the Middle East, Collin. He also put his money where his mouth is. In 2007, his News Corp business donated to the Jerusalem Foundation, a group that builds illegal Israeli settlements in the West Bank, including in the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhoods of Jerusalem, which ICJ just ruled that as illegal, no? Yes. If I'm not mistaken. So, Murdoch has led the fight against the global boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, claiming that it represents an ongoing war against the Jews. The war has entered a new phase. Is that like the war on Christmas? I feel like that's like the war on Christmas, you know? Like, anyway, this is the soft war that seeks to isolate Israel by delegitimizing it. The battleground is everywhere. The media, multinational organizations, NGOs in this war. The aim is make Israel a pariah. He made those comments at an Anti-Defamation League event where the organization presented him with its International Leadership Award that the ADL, which purports to be a group standing against racism, would honor Murdoch with such an award despite his networks pumping out relentless bigotry, underlines how little emphasis it places on genuine anti-racism and how much it works to simply promote Israeli interests. I mean, I agree. They ain't wrong. Alan McLeod ain't wrong. The ADL is hardly the only Jewish organization that has heaped praise on the media mogul. However, the Simon Wiesenthal Center decorated him with the Humanitarian Laureate Award. Other groups, such as the Museum of Jewish Heritage and the American Jewish Committee, have also sung his praises. The United Jewish Appeal Federation of New York declared him their Humanitarian of the Year at a lavish ceremony where Henry Kissinger presented him with the award. I mean,
or just kissing his ass.
Can you get any more like vile humans in a room? Like, yeah.
Right.
Murdoch took over his father Adelaide's newspaper in 1952 and quickly built a giant global enterprise, particularly across the English-speaking world. He used this power to spread his conservative agenda. His British holdings, including the Sun, the Times, and Sunday Times, constitute 1/4 of newspaper circulation in the country. His News Corp company also operates Sky Television, Talk TV, Talk Radio, and Talk Sport. Murdoch is widely believed to have swung both the 92 elections for the Conservatives and the 97 elections towards Labor after Tony Blair struck a deal with him. It's difficult to think of a prime minister in the last 40 years who has won against the Murdoch instinct, said former Guardian editor-in-chief Alan Rusbricker. So yeah, Talk TV. Maybe don't go there. Maybe don't do that. Because clearly they have ulterior motives. I don't know why that's hard to see. But, you know, we just had her on the show, right? Oh, Miss Vanessa Beeley. So she says boycott Talk TV in regards to Julia, who works over there, Julia Hart Brewer. Right? She writes, "You are a disgusting tool for establishment. You deny massacre of 45,000 children, Zionist history of apartheid, colonial abuse, savagery, and 75 years of ethnic cleansing. You are a disgrace to humanity and complicit in genocide of Palestinians, as are many of the people over there at Talk TV. 4,500, sorry. But, you know, at this point, those numbers are not much different. But, yeah, just in case people are wondering what they should and shouldn't do. So, in the United States, Murdoch owns influential outlets such as the Wall Street Journal, the New York Post, and much of the Fox network. This is in addition to owning the influential HarperCollins publishing house. He is known as an unusually hands-on owner, insisting that the tone and political line of all his outlets conform to his thinking. For better or for worse, the News Corp is a reflection of my thinking, my character, and my values, he admitted. This includes wholehearted support for the 2003 invasion of Iraq, we can't back down now, where you hand over the whole of the Middle East to Saddam. I think Bush is acting very morally, very correctly, and I think he was going to go on with it, he said. He also made sure that every one of his 175 global newspaper titles expressed similar vociferous support for the invasion. Inside the industry, yes.
Pause for a second.
Mm-hmm.
It's just making me think more so now why Kamala was selected.
Yeah.
To be president.
Uh-huh.
Because Kamala and I don't know Kamala, but I can take a guess. Like, she's very manageable. Like, you can mold her into saying, like, she's an empty suit. She's just essentially there just to play the part and to do whatever is needed. She doesn't have any moral, well, we've seen this just given her history. Like, she has no morals or principles. She will do whatever she needs to do in order to get on top. And so regarding that, but you can also make the argument for politicians, but I think because, well, really her and Trump, they are the figureheads of their parties right now. They have to be they have to be the type of people that can be reasoned with, that you can kind of talk to them and say, you need to do this and this is why, and they will kind of go along with it. It's very easy to persuade them to do the things that you want them to do, and they won't necessarily critically think about it because it's only going to lead to them making more money or more fame or whatever it is. But that just kind of tells me more so that they want Kamala there because she's not going to rock the boat at all. She's not going to question, at least publicly, the imperial needs of Israel at all. She's going to say what she needs. And I think is with Biden, I think given his cognitive decline, he was no longer worth as of last month. So they got rid of him. Kamala, I think, has always wanted to be president anyway. So it was just a matter of, we'll give you this power, but you need to do our bidding. So that's just kind of how I see it with her, especially. But this just makes it very nefarious to me as to, and I'm just speculating here, but I don't think I'm too far off the mark in what I'm saying in terms of, again, going back to, like, I want to see, again, I don't know Kamala, but I feel like, and I only say this because she has, her two stepchildren are like Gen Z. Like, granted, they live with their father who is a Zionist, but I'm fairly certain that her stepkids are probably more in line with what the pro-Palestinian sentiment, possibly, than they are on her father's way of thinking, more than likely. So it's not to say that Kamala doesn't hear or understand the Palestinian issue. It's a matter of whether she's going to be the woman that people are looking for her to be in order for her to fight against it. And we know she won't. But I think with her, that makes it especially dangerous because she knows the impact that this will have on the Palestinians, but she only cares about her prestige and her look in terms of now that she's basically the number one woman in the Democratic Party. That's what she has wanted this whole time.
Time and time again, candidate after candidate proved to you that the president really has no power. They are controlled by the ones with power, and they will do their bidding regardless. They are there as PR management.
And I'm sorry, but
that's about it.
Right, and I'm sorry, but Kamala is not that intelligent.
No.
Like, just given what we've hear, and I'm only saying this given what we hear from her, that she's not able to justify her morals, her principles at all. Again, but she hasn't. But she has no morals, so she's very easy to manipulate to say whatever or do whatever, people who her handlers tell her to do or say. So, yeah, just had that thought immediately in reading.
Right.
Because but it just shows how nefarious, especially with media, it is. And again, especially given that a lot of these media organizations are run by one person. Like Amazon is Bezos. All these shows like Fox News, Murdoch. I'm trying to remember the other billionaire who tried to run in 2020.
Yeah, I know you're talking about.
Yeah,
I can't think of his name either.
That person, I forgot the name. But if you guys know in the chat, you can share it. But it's all these one guys, and it's interesting to say that Murdoch is basically saying, "I want these I want you clearly have your bias. You've admitted you have your bias, and you want your publications to reflect that bias."
Yeah.
That's not journalism.
No. So speaking of, inside the industry, Fox News is known for its particularly strict top-down editorial procedure. One former contributor claimed that working under Murdoch was almost as if we're being monitored by a Stalinist system. It is very much an environment of fear. A second confided that if you don't go along with the mindset of the hierarchy, if you challenge them on their attitudes about things, you are history. But it is in his local Australia that his power reaches almost Banana Republic-like proportions. Murdoch owns 7 of the country's 12 national or capital daily newspapers. In half of the country's state or territory capitals, there is no local alternative to the Murdoch publication. Former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd labeled his empire a cancer on Australian democracy. So
right, and again, this kind of goes into, we talked about this earlier, how people were just like willing to jump ship.
Yeah.
For Kamala and Waltz. It's like they present Waltz as this fluffy teddy bear grandpa, and again, he has done some nice things, but even with those nice things, I'll argue they're not progressive. That's just the floor to me. That's not necessarily going above. No, it's like, oh, I got free school lunches for kids.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but we should be doing that anyway.
A gift.
Sorry, like in the richest country in the world, we should be offering that anyway.
A gift to the Kraft Nabisco company,
Right.
So,
which, funny enough, that's what people are saying. Like in Savvy's chat, that people are telling me, and I want to try and do some research to see if that's true. But it seems like Kraft may be one of the
like beneficiaries there.
Maybe one of the organizations, that is actually aligned with Minnesota school lunches. So essentially what I think it was Salamoon was saying, that essentially they get Lunchables for lunch.
Yeah.
So, so it's like, so, but it's just these corporate, it's media. It's like, but how they can easily control the groupthink.
Yeah.
And we saw this week. It's just they were so easily to be able to first
and that
have
part of that is I was going to say part of that is that classic media is no longer as influential as it used to be, right? People like Murdoch, people like Bezos had control of that already, right? Now it's the future frontiers of Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and Twitch and Kick and Rumble and Rockfin and, like, this is where people are consuming their media now. And if they don't have some control over that, that's a problem for them, which is what you're seeing. It's why you see thousands of bots suddenly show up for something.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Like,
it's why you see thousands of bots suddenly show up for something.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Like, I've gotten more bots since Elon took over than I ever had or remember on Twitter.
Yeah.
So, and they do it based on an algorithm of things that you might have said or how you connect to people. So,
yeah.
So be very careful of how you navigate Twitter, especially if you don't want these bots to come at you for certain shit.
Yeah.
Which I don't do, and now I'm paying the price for it.
So speaking of bots, let's talk about Piers Morgan, who is a terribly built robot, but until he recently went independent with his talk show, Piers Morgan was one of Murdoch's most
not.
Right. Yeah, independent.
He's not.
Independent, as many places now claim.
That Kyle and Crystal are independent.
Right. So Piers Morgan was one of Murdoch's most recognizable anchors. Hosting a popular talk show that reached millions, Morgan has played a crucial role in informing the public about Israel and Palestine. Although he has claimed he is entirely... Go ahead.
I mean, it's more like, what's the word? Like...
Indifferent, almost.
Propaganda.
Is more the word. Yeah.
Propaganda.
Yeah, usually he lets 8 Israeli pundits talk down to 1, but...
Pro-Palestinian.
Right. It's also very similar to how a couple other Fox News anchors just have suddenly entered the independent space. I'm looking at all 3 of you too. I pull no punches on all there. You got the Tuck, you got the Candace, you've got, Piers here. Y'all were all in bed at that place. Who's the other one? Megan, right?
Megan.
Kelly.
Yeah.
All of you are propagandists to the highest order. We still see you as that. At least I do. Some people get fooled, but not I, Sam I am. So, Morgan has a close number of close connections to Israel worth noting. Funny that. Firstly, he has supported the Norwood charity on a number of occasions, helping to raise hundreds of thousands for dollars for the group. Norwood is headed by the aforementioned Israel lobbyist, Lord Mendelsohn. Along his wife, Lady Nicola Mendelsohn. I wonder how any of y'all met. Was it dinners at Murdoch's house? What was,
Probably.
Most likely. Lady Mendelsohn is also head of global business for social media giant Meta. Yeah. Parent company of Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram. In case you think that's somehow different. She has consistently lobbied for Israeli causes and even met former President Shimon Peres. During her time at Meta, the company has begun to employ dozens of former agents of the Israeli spying group Unit 8200, which Vanessa mentioned last week. All in sensitive positions within the company. They're also at Twitter, too, by the way. Facebook, in particular, has grown closer to Israel, even appointing former general director, the Israeli Minister of Justice, Emi Palmore, to its oversight board, the group that decides what direction the company goes and what content to allow and disallow on the platform. So that's who's running that department. So Norwood's previous president was Sir Trevor Chin. Chin is currently head of United Jewish Israel Appeal, a British Israeli group.
People?
Hey, look at that. We got a dono from the Accord Lord for $20. A little heart. Nice of you to leave that. Thank you so much. So, British Israeli group whose goal is to increase young British Jews' sense of connection to Israel. Wonder what that means. He is also on the executive committee of Britain's largest Israeli group, BICOM, and has funded Labor Friends of Israel. So
So
Great friends.
basically, he's trying to. So going back to young British Jews' sense of connection to Israel. So basically, it's like the groups that go to Israel for tours and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, and just feeling that
He's
propaganda,
the-
like all that kind of stuff that India's talked about. with
Right.
us.
Yeah.
So-
And astroturfing affairs, and this is just your youth pastor for Israel, pretty much.
Basically.
So on October 22nd, at the height of Israel's attack on Gaza, Morgan met Lady Mendelssohn in New York for dinner. Also present at the meal was Welsh singer Catherine Jenkins, who has raised money for the Jewish National Fund, the largest settler building body in Palestine. It is unclear what they discussed, but given their careers and interest, it is hard to see how news from the Middle East did not arise. Thus, while Morgan may have invited individuals from all points of the spectrum, he does not appear to move in circles, or he does appear to move in circles filled with top Israeli lobbyists. Any questions?
Yeah, look at what it's mentioned. It's like media, social media, like, and people like, oh, Jews don't own everything. That's anti-Semitic. Well, you're seeing it here. I'm not saying it's that, but it's like it's very obvious that at least in these cases, that many of these people are Jewish, are like in these top Israeli / Jewish organizations that obviously have a lot of power and influence. That you're right, they're not going to be meeting with
No.
the regular schmegglers. They're going to be meeting among their own because they want to essentially control an empire, that being the Middle East. So whatever they need to do and pull them, this is Zion, like we've seen this, this is Zionism at its finest here. It's pulling their money, pulling their resources to manipulate government. Well, like back in the day, manipulate government. Now, in this case, manipulate media. To have the sentiment of Israel being like the angels here. But as we have said, it's not necessarily working because there's far more people who are seeing the bullshit that are willing to speak out against that. That goes back to the idea of banning TikTok.
Yeah.
And I said,
Same
if
lobbying
they tried
groups,
to
by the
ban
way.
TikTok, I would imagine that one of these goons would take it over easily.
Easily. They would have been forced to put one of those in, is what would have happened. But look, look, journalist brothers and sisters, look, come talk to me real quick. If you're asked on Talk TV, okay, which is owned and funded by Rupert Murdoch, why do you think they want you on? Like, do you think it's just because it's an opportunity for you to voice your opinion? No. They want to manipulate your opinion and shut it down.
I mean,
that's what they want.
But you know what? Like someone like Cenk and Hassan, especially, they've gone on Piers Morgan's show dozens of times.
Yeah.
They talked about the pro-Israel, they've talked about the pro-Palestinian cause multiple times. And what are they doing now? Like acting like SEALs for the Democratic Party.
So, as Nancy Reagan once said, just say no. Just say no to Talk TV. Just say no. Don't go. It's fine. It's going to be okay. And that stands for any of its subsidiaries, anybody. If it's the James Whale Lord Hour, whatever, like, PIERS, don't go on that show either. Like,
I've said that show is basically the political Jerry Springer. That's really what it is now.
Yeah. That's what they're hoping for.
It is.
So,
right, because it brings drama, it brings the views, but like again, I don't think it's working necessarily, but as I've said, politics is one step to entertainment.
Well, and look who owns your media, please. Any media,
right?
Any of them, and don't get too comfortable. Right. It is very easy, but there's a little more to this. So, unsurprisingly, given what we have seen, Murdoch's top publications have displayed an overwhelming bias in their coverage of Israel's war on Gaza, constantly defending Israeli actions and demonizing both Palestinians and those who have opposed the violence. On October 19th, an Israeli airstrike targeted the Church of St. Porphyrius in Gaza City, where hundreds of refugees had taken shelter. In describing the attack, the Wall Street Journal ran with the headline, "Blast goes off at Orthodox Church campus in Gaza," turning what was one of the most notorious incidents in Israel's month-long assault on Gaza into a regrettable accident. At no point during the article did the journal suggest that the blast might have been an attack or even hint at Israeli involvement. The journal was also led the attack on Americans protesting the onslaught with who's behind the anti-Israel protest? Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and the others are grooming activists in the U.S. and across the West. Ran the headline of one story, clearly identified to vilify people opposing genocide as agents of a foreign power. Another story, entitled "Welcome to Dearborn, America's Jihad Capital." Feel free to look up what jihad actually means. Echoed Bush-era levels of Islamophobia in its attempts to equate the heavily Arab-American city with anti-American hatred. Campus demonstrations, meanwhile, were written off as terrorist-glorifying protesters who constitute the left-wing counterparts of the Charlottesville mob that chanted, "Jews will not replace us." Ugh.
Right. But also, again, like, Van Jones this week, I forgot what he said. What did Van Jones say regarding like a dark underbelly of like
anti-Semitism, antisepticism? Yeah, same
this
shit.
is what this is.
Yeah,
this is
so
what this is.
The newspaper
All
has
this bullshit.
also published articles demanding the U.S. go to war with Iran. The U.S. and Israel need to take on Iran directly, make the Ayatollahs pay for sowing chaos through their Hamas, Hezbollah, and Houthi proxies. First of all, that's not where Hamas comes from. Like, it's like every article is just steeped in wrong. First of all.
Right.
Right? But wrote former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, right? Who just apparently gets to write in our papers. So, and for Palestine, the Wall Street Journal envisages its future as a giant arms factory, making the weapons for Israel's assault on Iran in an op-ed entitled "A Plan for Palestinian Prosperity." Shout out for me and Indy for covering that one. Columnist Andy Kessler wrote that producing the weapons for the next Israeli attack would bring middle-class jobs to Gaza. They even can work on Saturdays, and without handouts from the politicized UN, he claimed, although he cautioned...
Hold on, let me give some preface here, because I think Vanessa said this. In the Arabic world, like, the weekends are Fridays and Saturdays.
Yeah.
So the idea that they're working on a Saturday is it's basically their equivalent of a 6 or 7 day work
week. Right. So
just to give that
yeah,
context.
Thursdays are also involved with that weekend for them, right? I think.
Yeah, but it's like the weekend, the weekend in the Arab, it's Friday, Saturday. That's when shops are closed. Like here, generally, it would be like on a Saturday, Sunday. There will be like on a Friday, Saturday.
Here's the funny bit. He claimed, although he cautioned that perhaps the explosives should be added elsewhere by more trustworthy employees, which is just chef's kiss on the racism on that one. But Murdoch's other publications have followed suit, relentlessly supporting Israel and demonizing its critics. Fox News, for example, spread the now debunked assertion that Palestinian fighters beheaded 40 Israeli babies on October 7th. In reality, no babies were beheaded, although Israeli bombs or bullets have since decapitated countless Palestinian children. The New York Post, meanwhile, published a remarkable article titled, "Just How Many of Gaza's Civilians Are Entirely Innocent?" What a fucking title. In which it repeatedly insinuated that essentially every adult in Gaza was a legitimate target, even using the word civilian in scare quotes. On Israel, Palestine, journalists and corporate media are under enormous pressure to toe an ownership-imposed line. The New York Times, for example, has told its reporters not to employ words such as genocide, slaughter, and ethnic cleansing when discussing Israel's actions. It is even forbidden the use of terms like refugee camp, occupied territory, or even Palestine, making virtually impossible to report accurately on the situation. Yeah, I don't know how you put up with that as a journalist, but Murdoch publications are surely no different. Indeed, this sort of stifling censorship has been in place for decades. If former employees are to be believed, in 2001, Sam Kiley, former correspondent for the Times of London, revealed that he was instructed never to refer to Israel as assassinating or executing their opponents. And when he was tasked with interviewing an Israeli army unit responsible for killing a 12-year-old Palestinian boy, he was asked to file the article without somehow mentioning the dead child at all. How? That's the story.
I mean, Hind,
yes.
job, same thing.
Yep. So
they got any coverage, and then they, even in the media, they got her age wrong. They misaged her and whatever else, and like no one knows about the story at all.
No.
And then I brought it up to people, and it's like, well, that's Hamas's fault. Like, no, like,
yes, they've recruited like a 6-year-old girl into their evil den of lies. What? Like, this is not a fucking cartoon,
but it's the
folks.
idea, like, all this confusion would not be happening if it wasn't for Hamas. That's the argument.
Yeah.
For some of these people,
which is
I
ridiculous.
Frequently yell at.
So the 9-month-long Israeli attack on Gaza has inspired outrage across the world. While its standing has dropped even further in the global south, Israel still maintains a considerable base of support in the West. This is down in no small part thanks to oligarchs such as Rupert Murdoch, who have marshaled their considerable resources to fight a committed media war in support of the Israeli state, attempting to hide its atrocities and shore up support for its expansionist project. For Israel, which could not continue in its current form without outside support, particularly from the U.S., the battle for public opinion is every bit as important as the fight on the ground. Fortunately for Netanyahu and his ilk, they can rely on Rupert Murdoch, who has for decades championed Israeli cause and is now pushing his media empire into overdrive to defend the indefensible. If the pen is indeed mightier than the sword, then Rupert Murdoch is one of Israel's most powerful weapons. Any questions, Collin?
Yeah.
Concerns, thoughts?
No question. I mean, concerns abound, but like, you know, I think shout out to Alan for reporting on this, but yeah, it just kind of proves how strong and how manipulated we really are. I mean, again, we've seen this even within the last week and a half, how quickly people are able to kind of fall in line and like reading mainstream media. Like we saw it like with Kamala, like essentially having her be okay when 5 years ago, like she was not a top candidate at all. Like people just seemingly forgot about that. And now we have this guy, and funny enough, and I know you don't like Kyle, but he was making the case for Tim Walz. As far as I know, he didn't mention anything about his pro-Israel views. But this was a guy that said that Gaza was his red line for months. So it's like, you know, it's all in terms of money and power and control for the control for us, at least. But like for everyone else, it's like for money and prestige. And it's just very sick that this is the reality of us, you know, like of having to, and we kind of even see, even in independent media scene, you know, the fact that like someone like Bree, and she said it, like she was willing to work on the Hill. She knew she was going to get fired at some point, but it's not to say like the Zionists at the Hill. I don't entirely know, but like, you know, but there was, for her, there was control. like she wasn't able to talk about Gaza or any like Palestinian cause in a way that she wanted to. And you know, she ended up obviously she ended up getting, you know, laid off like when too much was too much. So, but again, the good thing is I think this propaganda, this push, this pull to kind of make Israel like the good guys isn't working. Like younger people especially are seeing through the bullshit and they're trying their best to fight against it in whatever way we can. And my only encouragement to you guys, I'm not sure if we really have Gen Z watchers in the chat, but if you're ever watching this at some point and we still are dealing with this issue of Israel, keep pushing. You know, it is working because now they have to try and, you know, Israel is not getting any support right now. The world is basically standing with Palestine right now, and it's driving them crazy. Like they're trying to figure out what other means they can to manipulate the situation, and people are not standing for it. So I just wish there was a way that we can kind of actively kind of collect that consensus in terms of Israel being assholes and actually using that as a way to actually overthrow them in our media, in our literature, like everything we just kind of consume, like to eradicate them from our consciousness.
Yep. Well, I mean, I wonder why we're demonetized, Collin. It might not have anything to do with things we just said. You know, if you want to get around that system a bit, you can scan that QR code on your screen or go to ko-fi.com/indienewsnetwork. Links in the description as always. If you're in that live chat, you can put !donate in the chat. You can get that if you want to, but if you can't give to us because you're one of the poors like ourselves, just like and subscribe. Try to share the stream. We're heavily suppressed, so getting this to your like-minded friends certainly would help us, you know, and leave a comment. Allegedly, all that engagement does some stuff, but otherwise, you know, thanks for watching. You can also get some merch. Look at that. Look at the nice merch you can get. You can get that little tanky top, you know, hit you up with that tanky top, that watermelon hoodie. You know what I'm saying? Come on, peoples. All right. Well, I think I actually have a calendar for this week. So let's pull that up. But meanwhile, Indy talking about that he doesn't like NPR and therefore refuses to watch Tiny Desk. Okay. You know.
Right.
Principled. You just don't like good music. It's okay. You can listen to Kid Rock if you want to. You know, you can do that. Anything else?
No.
Money, power, respect, Little Kim. You know.
Yeah.
Cash rules everything around me.
I have some thoughts
Gotta
around
get the money.
that in like what we talked about, but I might save that for another.
Dollar bill, yo. Anyway, all right. Here's our calendar for this week. We had a couple. You probably just missed our anti-war stream with INN. Go check that out. That was Indy and Scott Horton. So I heard it got pretty fun in there. You know, us politically homeless tomorrow, I do believe. Do we know if Crab is back yet? Possibly, maybe.
He's back
allegedly
in the country, but whether he's streaming, that's up in the air. So check on Twitter for that. Friday, Angel in the afternoon at 7.
Yep.
And then American Tradition Clip Show at 10:30.
Yep.
All these times are Eastern. Saturday, Snow Himpo Gaming at 11 p.m. Sunday, Pro Wrestling Talk at 7. How Do We Miss That with Indian Reef at 10. Monday, new show, The Maple Files with Yeti and Himbo at 8. And Tuesday next week, we'll have American Tradition with Jesse. And then we'll be back here next week. And we only did 9:30 this week because of
Indy needed some
panel.
space.
But we should be back next week at our normal time at 9.
Yep. Well, I think that's it. Anything else?
Yep.
Boats after, how do we miss that? Same old stuff every week. Y'all should know by now. But anyway, well, as always, kids, labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.
Have a good week, everyone. And thank you.
We want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
Bye. Have a great time.